Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to this fifth round of the Campionato Italiano Giovanile di Debate English section. The motion for this round is: this house believes that modern situationship culture, which is casual but emotionally involved relationships without labels, is a rational response to the economic instability of our generation. On team proposition, we have Logos Society from Lombardia. I ask them to introduce themselves.
Good evening, I'm Martina, and today I'm going to be the first speaker and the reply speaker.
I'm Francesca, and I will be the second speaker.
I'm Carlotta, and I will be the third speaker.
Now, from team opposition, we have Disertissimi English from Abruzzo.
Good evening, I'm Isabella Kizak. I will be the first speaker.
I'm Mark Morelli, and I will be the second speaker.
I'm Cassandra D'Amicis, and I will be the third speaker.
I'm Benedetta Leone, and I will be the chief adjudicator for this round. With me, there will be two other judges that I ask to introduce.
Hi everyone, I'm Luca and I'll be a panelist for this debate. Good luck.
I am Andrea Virga, I am the third judge for this debate.
Okay, I think we are all ready to start, so I give the floor to the first speaker of proposition team.
Okay, good evening, and my speech is going to start in 3, 2, 1, and go. Honorable judges, members of the House, today we debate situationships, relationships that are emotionally involved but without formal labels or traditional commitments. Our team supports the motion because we believe these relationships represent a rational adaptation to modern economic and social realities. This debate is not about judging personal choices or claiming that situationships are superior to traditional relationships. It is about recognizing that human behavior evolves in response to circumstances. When economic and social pressures change, so do the ways people form a sort of connections. First, let me define our terms. By situationships, we mean relationships where individuals share emotional intimacy and companionship without the obligation of a labeled partnership. By rational response, we mean a choice that makes sense when considering real-world constraints and personal well-being. And the opposition team may argue that such relationships are superficial or avoidant. We respectfully disagree. Emotional connection does not require rigid structures to be meaningful. And people can care for each other and provide support without formal definitions. And today, our team will demonstrate three main topics. At first, I will argue that situationships offer emotional support and flexibility, which are valuable in a generation like our generation, facing uncertainty. And my teammate will show that situationships are a rational response to economic instability because financial pressures and changing life timelines shape relationship choices. And she will also explain how situationships reflect. Yeah.
Do you think that situationships can also occur even without economic instability?
I think they can occur because people sometimes they are thinking about their career or their studies. So it can be different for the economic, but just for personal goals. So it's a different kind of situationship, but it can also occur, like I just said. So as I was saying, our third speaker will explain how situationships will reflect social and cultural adaptation, highlighting with modern values of autonomy and personal growth and mental health. As the first speaker, I will focus on the emotional support and flexibility of a situationship. I think that modern life is demanding. Young people experience academic pressure, career uncertainty, and financial challenges, most of all. Housing costs and economic instability often delay traditional milestones. Such as cohabitation or marriage. And in this kind of environment, relationships that require high-level commitments can become a source of additional stress. And situationships offer an alternative. In
POI.
this case, I rejected, sorry. They allow situationships, as I was saying, offer an alternative because they allow emotional closeness without the pressure of defining every aspect of the relationships, the relationship. And this flexibility can reduce anxiety and create space for personal growth. An individual can concentrate about education, careers, and also self-development. And most of all, we think that flexibility does not mean emotional emptiness, because a situationship can be meaningful too, like a traditional relationship. And people in this kind of relationship
Right.
can offer, yes.
So you have to be in a relationship, in a situationship, to share apartment with someone.
No, you don't have to, but as I said, it can be a problem for a traditional relationship because it's a long-term cohabitation or, as I said, to marriage. So it can be difficult for the couple to decide about the economic future, and it can bring stress and anxiety, as I said. So as I was saying, relationship is not a rejection of commitment. It is a recognition that commitment can take different forms. For some people, commitment means lifelong partnership. For others, it means honesty and emotional support in the present. And we think that both are valid expressions of human connection. And therefore, situationships should be understood as part of a broader kind of a broader spectrum of relationships, and they reflect modern realities and provide a way to balance emotional needs with personal circumstances. So to summarize, situationships offer emotional flexibility, and they reduce pressure in uncertain times, and they allow meaningful connection without rigid expectations, as a traditional relationship can be. And they represent also adaptation to contemporary life. And for these reasons and for the arguments we will continue to develop with my teammates, we support this motion. And I'm going to end my speech now. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Martina, for your speech. Okay, I don't, because of the layout, I don't see the other judges. So if they, at some time, they are not ready, you can open your microphone. Otherwise, we can go on with first opposition.
Okay, if everyone's ready, my speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to begin this debate by challenging some of the assumptions made by the proposition team about what our team line and what our choices were going to be within this debate. And I'm going to correct some of those assumptions. Specifically, they seem to understand that this debate was going to be about whether or not situationships are beneficial, whether or not they bring joy, whether or not they bring stability to someone's life. Yet we, and we will explain why, quite clearly understood that our role in this debate is to prove that it is not related to economic instability, the economic instability which is present in our modern day society. And we will prove why this is true in our following arguments. But before I get to our arguments, I will begin by rebutting some of the statements that the proposition team said. They discussed the pressures of modern day society. They did discuss economic instability. They discussed, for example, academic pressures. They discussed housing costs. These are very difficult situations. And we argue that these difficult situations need stability. They need, people need emotional support. People need a sense of stability within their lives. What they don't need is this constant pressure hanging over them of what is going on with my relationships with other people. That is what a situationship is. It is it's a question mark. It is I kind of know you, I kind of am with you, but I'm not. That is what a situationship is. It does not have a label. It is not defined. It breeds instability, and therefore it breeds stress, it breeds anxiety, and that is not helpful to anyone in a society. So, moving on from this, yes, I accept.
So you said that thinking about career and the future needs an emotional support. So don't you think that situationship can bring emotional support too?
I think it could bring emotional support, but it is more likely that a relationship with a label, a stable relationship in which there is a clear commitment from one partner to the other, is more likely to bring emotional support because you are committing to bringing support. That is what a relationship with a label is. It is commitment. As soon as you say, we are together, we will be together, I think that we should be together for a very long time, that is commitment, and that is what brings support. So, moving on, let's discuss kind of what in the context in which we are having this debate, because humanity has seen a lot of changes over its course. It's seen wars, revolutions, discoveries, and these have all changed the state of our economy, and as a consequence, the economic state of our society is continuously fluctuating. We have booms, we have crises, depressions. It is forever changing. What is not forever changing, what is constant, however, is our human nature and our desire for love and affection from the people we care about. So the human mind which is what makes us as a person, is very complex. It's multifaceted. We as people are complex and multifaceted, and our relationship with those that surround us is complex and multifaceted. Love is perhaps one of the most explored themes in art, literature, and philosophy, yet is one of the least understood aspects of our nature. But what we can say for certain is that people seek the company of the people who make them feel appreciated and valued and heard, who make them feel comfortable and supported. This is a really intricate mix of emotions, and people often take a long time to, choose the right person for them, choose who to spend the rest of their life with. So in today's society, we have given a name to this period in time. We have given a name to this state, and we have called it a situationship, which the motion defines as a casual or emotionally involved relationship without labels, such as, for example, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner. So the proposition team has, well, they say that they are going to show a link. I assume they're going to show a link between the economic state of our present day society and the rise in situationship culture, and they have attempted to show how this is beneficial to people within this culture. It's a rational response, yet in our arguments we will show how this is not only inconsistent, but that also it is definitely not beneficial, so that there is not a link and that it is not a rational response. So we shall do so with 3 arguments, which are the following. Our first argument is that it is not related to the situationship culture, is not related to economic instability. This will be the argument that I will be expanding upon. The second argument is that the rise in situationship culture is a cultural phenomenon, not an economic one. And our third is that even if we consider the link between the economy and between situationship culture, one is not a rational response to the other. It is not beneficial. So moving on to my first argument, situationships have always existed. They weren't always named as such, but they've always been there. From ancient Greeks, the Middle Ages, contemporary times, men have had complete sexual liberty and were free to form unofficial, unlabeled bonds, emotionally involved bonds. Therefore, it's unrealistic, it's inaccurate to think of this phenomenon as a mere response to the economic instability of our time, of today, as we know that the economy is continuously changing and developing. So if we go through the pages of history books, we can see famous examples of this behavior. Ancient Greece, for example, we have the eretas, which were described as, courtesans who were educated and refined, who offered companionship and entertainment, and sexual services, of course, to men. And they often formed deep bonds with their partners without, however, labeling themselves as official relationships. We have the relationship between Aspasia and Pericles. We have situationships between kings and their mistresses. We have, for example, a famous example would be August II of Poland, who's said to have dozens of mistresses and over 300 illegitimate children. So we see this phenomenon again and again. So we have lovers, but not quite, bonds, but they don't have a label. So how can this be a new phenomenon which depends solely on today's present economy if it has always existed for men? What has changed, in fact, is that now women play a role because they have more sexual freedom, they have more rights, and they now participate in this so-called situationship culture. So situationship culture has always existed. It now just has a different kind of flavor, and we will explore the reasons behind this in our second argument, which will demonstrate that it is not linked to economic instability. In our third argument, we will then show how even if it were linked to economic instability, it is not a rational response to this instability. Thank you very much. With that, I end my speech.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabella. Now we can move on with second speeches, starting from team proposition.
Good evening. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, judges and the opposite side. I'm the second speaker, and now I will first talking about the first speaker that just finished her speech. So after having listened to her, we can understand that they reject this motion because they think that this phenomenon of situationship is not related to economic instability of our generation. And they say that our generation it's already in a difficult stability, so they need emotional support. And as we already asked, we think that situationship can give some emotional support, because you don't have to have something that is going to be something more in the future, but you have a support in this time, in the present. And situationship, they say that is instability. On the contrary, we support the idea that situationship is a lightweight situation, so can improve our instability, our personal instability, and can support us in a world where we have also other problems and other preoccupations. So, as my teammates already stated, yes.
Didn't you say in the argument that we aren't talking about the benefits of situationships?
So I just say that you said that situationship is an instability, but we said that situationship can give stability for us, because can give some lightweight situation when you are, and relationship can support in the present, but don't have to be something more in the future. So we think we are arguing your speech. As my teammates already stated before, situationship allow emotional closeness without the pressure of defining every aspect of the relationship, also with aspects of your future. So we think that can give you some support. Another point is that flexibility does not mean emotional emptiness. So when you have a situationship, it doesn't mean that there are not emotions involved. And during situationships, people can build bonds on mutual understanding rather than external expectation. So you want some support, but you don't have to expect something from your other pair. Now I will explain my argument. So the choice of having situationship is surely connected for us to the economic instability of these days. We are firmly convinced that this choice is related to people that want to focus on other goals, different from having a traditional relationship. An example could be people that are concentrated on their job, career, and would avoid having traditional relationships in order to be free to accept all the jobs opportunity. For example, what about having a boyfriend or a girlfriend who is going to be your husband or wife in a future, but someone offered you your dream job? So it can be hard in both situations, but everyone can choose which are their priorities. So having a situationship is not the worst or the best choice. It's a choice that everyone can choose. Another topic I'd like to point out is that many people would rather go for a situationship because they want to enjoy the moment, be emotionally involved, so having this emotional support, and without worrying about their future, because nowadays it happens more often because the higher costs of life that are increasing than in the past. So we can see how the cost of life in these days is higher, and it can be hard, it can be a preoccupation, a worry for some people. So they just want support in the present without thinking about a future. And what we want to say is that having a family, have a stability in these years isn't easy. Economic instability is a common fact among our generation, and for someone thinking about a stable future with a person could create more pressure. People could feel with more responsibilities. In conclusion, we can prove with these arguments that situationship is related to the economic instability of our generation, being focused on your own career, for example, a job career, or avoiding worries about the future because you already have others, can't obstacle you to have emotionally involved relationship. So the perfect option would be having a situationship. Thank you. With this, I will end my speech.
Okay, thank you for this speech. Now, second opposition. Second opposition.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, members of the proposition team, my name, as you may already know, is Mark, and in this debate, I will be the second speaker of the opposition team. My role in my speech is to dive into the second and third argument, but even review some of the terms and statements that the proposition team stated to us and these two speeches that they already done. First of all, as my colleague Cassie already specified, in this debate, we're not debating whether situationships are better or have more benefits than traditional relationships, but we're debating whether or not can be a response to economic economic instability. So that's not the reason that we're debating. We're debating on this reason. After that, I will dive into my second argument, that is the rise in situations is a cultural phenomenon, not an economic one. So, when we already saw in the first argument how situationships cultures is not related to economic stability, so the question is, what is the real cause? The truth is that situationships, as we already saw in the first argument, have always existed. And in fact, they are an historical phenomenon. But nowadays, it's caused by new and the new different factors. More and more importance is being given to mental health, how a person makes us feel, sexual freedom, and lastly, there is an inflating lack of values, and there isn't real need to be in relationships. Nowadays, mental health is normalized, which means that we care more about the mental well-being of the individual itself. That means that now people are encouraged to explore themselves. And often people are in situationships because how can you be in someone else when you really do not know yourself well? Moreover, there isn't a real need to enter an official relationship. Therefore, the way a person makes us feel has become more important than just being in a relationship, as I say, for the sake of it. Also, everyone nowadays is free to experiment with their own sexual lives, and that inevitably leads to the avoidance of labeling. Other than that, before we have talked about lack of values, but what does this mean? Nihilism is a philosophical current where reality, when seen in its inconsistencies, doesn't mean anything. So in our society, most people unconsciously follow this current because we lost the value of couple, relationship, etc. Lastly, nowadays the role of the woman is different. In fact, she can work, she has more chances of jobs, she can have a career. So there is no need for her to enter in a relationship because she can support herself on her own. To sum up, as we already seen in the first argument, situationships culture is rather culture related and it has changed in shape during history, thousands of years, than economic linked. Now I will dive into my third argument. Even if situationships, cultures, and economic stability were somehow linked, one is not rational response of the other. Now, when we analyze them at the term situationship culture, we actually realize that it cannot be a rational response in any way with economic stability. As we already stated in our first argument, situationships always existed, and it's not related to economic instability of our time. But what if I will state in this argument is that it against one better judgment to think that one it's a rational response to the other. We already know what a situationship is and where it comes from. An economic instability is a period of time where a country or a group of them has a struggle with their economic section that includes job opportunities, more commonly, public services like school, healthcare, etc., and many other entities like maybe banks or a rise of the value of the money. In a time of uncertainty that the one we're living in, it would just make sense for a long-term relationship that would take the shape of an economic alliance. People in a relationship share incomes, split rent, bill, taxes, car, gas. How is not being in a relationship a rational response to bad economic situation? Therefore, even if people got involved in situationships as a response to economic instability, it would not be a rational and response choice. And with that, I conclude my speech.
Okay. I think we can proceed with third speeches. So I invite third proposition to deliver its speech.
Thank you so much. My speech is going to start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, dear opponents, I am the third speaker of the proposition side, and my role as a speaker is to show you why, after weighing all the arguments, our side still wins this debate. The opposition says that situationships are just a cultural phenomenon, not a response to economic instability. But culture does not exist in a vacuum. Culture actually reflects material conditions. When housing becomes unaffordable, when people delay marriage, when jobs become unstable, people also delay children. When financial futures are uncertain, people avoid rigid long-term commitments. That is not random culture, that is economic adaptation. And that is the main point I am going to argue, the adaptation. If situationships were purely cultural, we would see them equally across generations facing economic stability, but we don't. They are disproportionately common among young adults living in precarity. Culture is the surface, economics is the engine of this phenomenon, if that's how you want to call it. So even if you call it culture, it is still a rational response to economic instability because culture evolves to survive economic reality. So the main question is whether situationships are a rational response to economic instability or not. Rational means adapting your behavior to the constraints you face. And our generation faces clear constraints such as rising rents, unstable contracts, relocation for work, which is a point that my teammate argued, delay financial independence, which is a even more common factor nowadays, and the constant pressure to invest in ourselves before we can afford stability. My teammate already explained the core idea. Situationships allow young people to focus on their goals while still enjoying meaningful emotional connections, without the pressure of promising a future that economic reality might not allow. I want to extend her point with a concrete example. Imagine you are offered a job abroad, which is a once-in-a-lifetime possibility, better salary, long-term growth, and if you are in a traditional, highly committed relationship with a high expectation, cohabitation, or long-term planning, that choice becomes emotionally, but most of all, financially complicated. And what would you do in that situation? Would you give up on the opportunity? Would you force your partner to move? Would you try long distance under a huge economic stress? In a situationship, the framework is really different. There is care, there is connection, but there's no binding expectation that your life paths must merge permanently. You are free to choose growth without feeling that you're betraying a shared future plan. We don't find it selfish. We find that it is adaptive. Another concrete example is housing, because today in many cities, moving in together is less about romance and more about survival, if you can say that. Couples often start to cohabit to actually split rent, not because they are ready for that level of commitment. And this creates an artificial acceleration in relationships. Emotional pressure can be caused by financial necessity. Situationship removed that forced pressure, that escalation. They allow two people to connect without merging finances or leaving arrangements prematurely. In an unstable market, avoiding financial bindings, entanglement, is a rational risk management. A third example I want to bring up is career investment, because many young people are pursuing master's degrees, certifications, side hustles, or multiple part-time jobs. Time and money these years are limited, and a traditional relationship often carries expectation of long-term planning, like saving together to buy a house, planning a wedding, and discussing children, so also mortgages. But when you don't even know if your contract will be renewed next year, those expectations become big stressors. And situationships actually reduce the scale of an emotional burden when life changes. they align emotional commitment with economic capacity. And that alignment, I'm going to reject it, sorry. And that alignment is the definition of rational behavior. So we can weight this debate on 3 criteria. The first is the adaptation to reality. Our side shows that situationship meets the instability of job markets, youth housing crisis, and mobility demands. The opposition asks people to maintain rigid relationship structures in a flexible, unstable world. Rigidity in an unstable system leads to fracture. The second criteria would be risk management, because as I said before, financial entanglement is risky when income is uncertain. Situationship reduces share debt, share leases, and legal obligation. And lower risk in uncertain environments is a rational strategy. And the third and last criteria would be autonomy and opportunity. Our model protects individual choices. It allows young people to take scholarships abroad, to accept temporary contracts, switch careers, or invest in themselves without feeling trapped by the expectations built. Yes.
Why are you talking about the only option that someone has are to be in a relationship or a situationship?
Because there are 2 main types of connection that we are discussing in this debate, and these are the situationship, which is just an emotional connection without an actual legal commitment or a huge commitment, which is involved by long-term relationship. We're not saying that those are the only choices, but those are the main possibilities that we can have, because how would you call a type of relationship that is not a huge commitment, if not a situationship? And to end my speech, I'm going to say that we are not rejecting love. We are recalibrating commitment to match the uncertainty of future. And with this, I'm going to end my speech. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Carlotta, for your speech. Now we can listen to the last constructive speech of this debate.
Okay, so I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I'm Cassandra D'Amicis, and I'm the third speaker of the opposition team. And I would like to rebuttal first what the first speaker of the proposition team said. So they talked about emotional connection that doesn't need a rigid structure. They talked about that situationships offer emotional support and flexibility. But in their framing, they also talked about that we aren't debating about whether situationships are good or not. So they contradicted on this part. Then they talked also about in the first speech that it can a relationship can become addictional stress. And so being in situationships reduces stress and increases flexibility, and the commitment is different. But again, it isn't relevant to the motion, as you said in the framing, not so it is contradictional. Then you talked about lastly in the first speech that it reflects modern realities. So we aren't really against this point, because we said that situationships have always existed, but we also said that in our society they happen because it is a cultural phenomenon that reflects our society, our contemporary society, because now it's common to talk about mental health, as you said, sexual freedom, and stuff like that. Then I will move on to the rebuttal what the second speaker of the proposition team said. So they also talked about the fact that they need emotional support, and because of this fact, situationships are the best choice. But again, they contradicted because they literally said before that it isn't the best or the worst choice; it's just a choice. But then they said there is the perfect option for someone who doesn't want stability, but who wants instability in their lives. Also, they talked again about the fact that they give support, and the flexibility doesn't mean emotional emptiness, but again, as you said, in the framing is not relevant to the emotion. So most of the things that you said, that you brought, aren't relevant to the emotion, as you said in your framing. Then they talked about the fact that the choice of situationships is connected to instability, and they talked about the fact that people prefer situationships to enjoy moments. Moments aren't really economical situations. And we talked about the fact that the costs of life are higher, that there is instability, and we agree on that. In fact, in our third argument, we talked about is against the fact that is against the one's better judgment to think that situationships is a rational response, because in a time of uncertainty that we are living, it would make sense in a long-term relationship where you share incomes, split rent, bills, taxes, and etc. And it isn't really rational, so to be in a situationship. Then you said that.
Yoi.
Yes, thank you.
So don't you think you just said that you need a relationship to have stability for sharing rents, for example? So don't you think that having also a long-term relationship is another responsibility to add to all the problems we can have?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Sorry. You just said that another problem, that a long-term relationship can help with sharing rents or something like that. And don't you think that having a long-term relationship can also be a problem to add to all the problems we already have?
So you are talking about the fact that it can add stress. So again, it's not relevant to the emotion. We are talking about economic, not about the benefits and the not benefits of being in a situationship or a relationship. Then you talked about also the fact that having a family isn't easy. So thinking of a stable future with a person creates pressure. So he said many times that speech isn't relevant to the emotion because pressure is economic. Then lastly, I would rebuttal what the third speaker, the proposition team said, and they talked about that situationships are common nowadays, are rational response, but they didn't really explain why. So we don't understand how they are related. What is the bond that you found? No, thank you. Between them. Then you talked about, again, about unstable rents, contracts, financial independence, connection without pressure of a future. And how can, for example, as you said before, the pressure of future depend on that. And then the financial independence, as we said in our second argument, is something that is on our cultural is a cultural phenomenon, because, for example, women have became self can provide for themselves. So you are saying that what we said is correct. Then we thought that they brought example about adapting to house sharing, and they objected it as survival, and that situationship can help many people, but they assumed that for living you have to be in a relationship or a situationship. They assumed that it is the only choice that we have. But why can someone be good on their own? As you said, someone can think about their career without other things. And with this, I land my speech. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Cassandra, for your speech. Now we can go on with reply speeches, starting with team opposition.
Okay, I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. This has been a very interesting debate, and specifically a debate that has been divided almost entirely into two separate kind of sections. We have discussed both whether situationships are beneficial or harmful. This is the sort of line that the proposition team wanted to discuss a little bit more. And then we have also discussed whether this cultural phenomenon, the emergence of situationships, is a phenomenon explicitly and directly linked to economic instability. This is what we have taken on as our kind of main line of argumentation. But in my reply speech, I am now going to go through both teams' argumentation and explain why, at the end of the day, at the end of this debate, our arguments are more correct and more probable than the proposition teams. So, firstly, let's go through it by discussing these two parts, which I just mentioned. To argue that that situationships are beneficial, the proposition team brought forth their first and third argument, which we did show very explicitly in the framing why those arguments are irrelevant, as that this is not the focus of today's debate. But even if this is true, let's consider their world, and let's consider a world in which situationships are tied to economic instability, and let's analyze if situationships would be a rational response to this instability. They discussed things like the difficulty in housing, the difficulty of, sharing a lease. But we brought forth a very clear idea, which is that of economic alliance. An economic alliance which allows for stability. We argued this in all our points. We argued this in our first argument, in our second argument, and especially in our third argument, in which we allowed for this even if scenario. And in our third argument, we discuss the fact that this economic alliance will bring stability, will bring the necessary benefits which will counteract what could be taken as the economic stability of our contemporary society. having discussed let's move to the second kind of section of today's debate, which touched upon whether the rise in situationships is directly linked to economic instability. The proposition team did not make much reference to this second point, but we showed specifically in our first argument, an argument which was not at all rebutted by the proposition team. It remains, a pillar of our team line, which has remained untouched by the proposition team. We discussed how this is a cultural phenomenon which has existed throughout time, which has existed regardless of the economic situation. And we showed, therefore, that it cannot be a link. There cannot be a clear and distinct link between the rise in situationships, which have always existed in one form or another, and today's contemporary economic society. Therefore, that brings us to kind of what would be considered our conclusion, which is that we have won this debate because we have addressed both parts of this motion correctly, analysing them and showing why our arguments are fundamentally more correct. Thank you very much. With that, I end my speech.
Okay, thank you, team opposition, for your reply speech. And now we can conclude with team proposition reply speech.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1, and go. So thank you everyone for this debate, and we thank the judges and the opposition team. So as we conclude this debate, let us return to the core question. Are situationship a rational response to the economy of our generation? We, the proposition, have shown that the answer is yes. That's why we think that we won this debate. First, we demonstrated that situationships provide emotional flexibility and support in a world of economic uncertainty. And young people today face academic pressure, career instability, and economic challenges. Relationships that allow emotional connection without excessive pressure can help individuals maintain well-being while navigating these struggles. And this is not a rejection of commitment, it is a recognition that meaningful human connection can take different kind of forms. The second point, we explain that situationships are a rational adaptation to economic instability. Housing costs, financial pressures, and delayed life milestones make a traditional commitment more difficult for many young people. And choosing flexible arrangements is not a sign of irresponsibility, it is a practical response to our real-world conditions. Human behavior adapts to the environment, and relationships are no exception. And the third topic, we showed that situationships reflect social and cultural evolution. Society changes over time, and so do the ways people from relationships. Autonomy, personal growth, and mental health are increasingly valued by our generation. Situationships align with these values by allowing individuals to explore emotional connections without rigid expectation and then economic struggles in the future. And the opposition team claimed that situationships are not related to economy, that they're merely a cultural phenomenon, and that they're not beneficial. And let us address to these points. To say situationships are unrelated to economic condition ignores the evidence, because economic and instability influences life choices, from housing to a career decision, and relationships are part of this context. And when financial pressures delay traditional milestones, Flexible relationship models become a logical alternative. This is not about reducing human emotion to economics. It is about recognizing that economic realities shape a social behavior. And the argument that situationships are only a cultural phenomenon does not weaken our case, because culture and economy are interconnected, and social norms evolve in response to material conditions, just as technological change transformed communication and work. Modern economic and social conditions influence how people relate to one another, and situationships are part of this evolution. And we are not arguing that situationships should replace traditional relationships. We are arguing that they represent a legitimate and a rational option within the spectrum of a human connection. People deserve the freedom to choose relationship models that align with their circumstances and the emotional needs. So I'm gonna end my speech. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for this debate. This was a very interesting topic. Now, me and the other two judges will meet to fill in the ballots and prepare the feedback. And I think that we can meet at around, I don't know, 10 p.m. So yeah, 10 minus 5. See you later.